Hey, first graders, guess what? It's Saturday, but I'm going to make this video right now so that on Monday, when this video gets posted, you can go along with us, okay? And the reason I'm making it today is because last night, right before I went to bed, I went to check on the plants again, and we had some blossoms, okay? And so that's what we were waiting for to be able to move on to lesson 6. So we're going to go ahead and get started with lesson 6. And there's going to be a bunch of different parts to this. So you'll want to go along with each one. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little story. Okay. This is called Speedy Bee and the Brassica Morty. Speedy Bee woke up one Monday morning, shook her wings, and poked her nose out of the hive. What a beautiful sunny morning it was. Speedy was very hungry. She considered where to go for breakfast. Should she go to the big flower garden down the street? No, not today. What she really wanted was the delicious nectar from the bright yellow flowers in the field behind Farmer Jones' barn. Yesterday, on her way home from collecting nectar and pollen, she had noticed that the whole field had turned yellow with tiny brassica flowers and smelled delicious. Speedy set off in a hurry. Not only did she have to get the sweet nectar for herself so that she could have lots of energy for the day, but she also had to collect pollen from the flowers to bring back to the hive to feed the new baby bees called larvae. She wanted some pollen too, to keep her muscles in good shape. She was flying merrily down the road when she decided to take a shortcut across the school grounds. All of a sudden, she stopped and hovered in the air, her wings beating very fast. She saw something bright yellow through the window of Miss Turner's classroom. Speedy loved yellow, and she zipped over to investigate. My goodness, she thought, where did those brassica flowers come from? And why are they growing in little boxes? Just then she noticed Miss Turner opening the window to let in some of the fresh breeze before the students arrived. Speedy waited until Miss Turner turned and walked into the hall. How wonderful! This was closer to the hive than Farmer Jones' field. She wouldn't have to fly so far this morning. Besides, for the moment she had all these flowers to herself. Into the room she flew, making a beeline for the closest plant. She perched on a petal and pushed her head deep into the flower to reach the nectaries at the bottom. As she sipped the liquid nectar with her long proboscis, her body brushed against the other parts of the flower. The sticky pollen from the stamens on the flower stuck to the feather-like hairs on her head and her body. Speedy worked very fast. She always worked hard. Each time she finished collecting nectar and pollen from the flowers in one little box, she hovered in the air for a minute and cleaned herself off. Using the brush-like part of her two front legs, she combed the pollen off her head and thorax and transferred it to the platform on her back leg. When the platform was full of the bright yellow pollen, she snapped up the bottom of the leg against the top part and packed the pollen into some special long curved hairs. Pretty soon, there was so much pollen there that it looked as if she had baskets of pollen on both hind legs. Speedy was having a wonderful time. She wasn't sure why there was a garden of brassica flowers in the school. She didn't think there was a farmer going to school with the children. On the wall near the plants was a sign that said Fast Plants, but Speedy couldn't read, so she just kept going on with her job. The plants were happy too. Each time pollen from one of the plants brushed off Speedy's body onto the flower of another plant, the second plant smiled. The pollen from its friends that collected on the stigmas of the flower seemed so good, whereas its own pollen was yucky. The flowers knew that pollen from their friends would grow and help them produce new seeds. That's why Speedy was doing such an was do that's why what Speedy was doing was so important to the plants. She was cross-pollinating all the brassica plants in Miss Turner's classroom so that each of them could produce seeds for the next generation. Cross-pollinating plants was an important part of Speedy's job. She had just moved to the last box of 4 plants when she heard the bell ring, and suddenly there was a lot of noise in the school. It was the students laughing and talking as they walked down the hall towards Miss Turner's room. Speedy thought perhaps she'd better finish quickly. Besides, she had collected so much pollen that she almost couldn't carry any more. She buzzed louder as she hurried over to the flowers in the last box and then flew toward the open window just as the children burst into the classroom. They seemed very excited about something. She heard Miss Turner say that today they could pollinate their fast plants. Did Miss Turner mean Speedy's brassica flowers? She watched for a moment, and sure enough, each of the children went over to pick up a little box of the brassica. Well, thought Speedy, I guess this time I won't tell all my friends at the beehive about the special garden of brassica plants. It looks like the children will be taking care of them. Tomorrow, I'll have to fly to Farmer Jones' field after all. She headed back home with her stomach full of nectar and laden with pollen for the new baby bees. As she flew away, the children in Miss Turner's class carefully moved around the room, cross-pollinating each other's fast plants. By the end of the week, as they examined their flowers, the pistils on every single flower was getting longer. Every flower that they had pollinated would be producing seeds. They were very proud of themselves, and Miss Turner was pleased with the plant skills they were developing. Nobody realized that part of their success was due to the visit from Speedy Bee. And the fast plants, they never told. Okay. So that is a fun little story just to introduce what it is that we're focusing on today. Okay, so I told you before we were focusing on pollination and symbiosis. Those are 2 big words, pollination and symbiosis. Now that story told you about what pollination is. Pollination is what happens when pollinators or certain insects fly between different plants and pick up the pollen from one plant and allow it to go down the pistil of another plant. Okay, so it is important for the pollen found on the stamen to end up going into the pistils of the plants because that is how we make sure that seeds can start to form and grow. Do you remember seeing those baby seeds? Okay, so remember the stamen, there were several different stamen on the flower, and they each had a little section at the top that was covered with pollen. And so now, because we have our blossoms, we're going to be able to pollinate our plant. Now, the other big word I just shared with you was symbiosis. Can you say symbiosis? Symbiosis, okay? Symbiosis, or a symbiotic relationship, is when 2 different creatures help each other. So insects and plants, they both help each other. They have a symbiotic relationship. So I want you to think for a moment about your house. And I bet you have a responsibility to pick up your toys. Yeah. So what would happen if somebody at your house who was in charge of vacuuming the floor went to go vacuum your room and your toys were still there? Would they be able to do their job very well? No. Okay, so you are able to help them by completing your job. You pick up the toys, then they can come in and vacuum. And because they vacuum, it helps you because your room stays clean, right? So that is an example of a symbiotic relationship, is how your family all helps each other to be able to stay healthy, keep things clean, and just have a good life. Well, plants and insects help each other because the insects will go to the flowers and they'll get their nectar and they'll get the pollen that they take back. to their hives, if we're talking about the bees. And then the plant helps, so that's how the plant is helping the bee. And then the bee is helping the plant because they are able to carry that pollen from one flower to another. Because can one flower go to another flower and say, hey, have some of my pollen, here you go? Nope. Okay. So they rely on other creatures to help move that pollen. And actually, aside from creatures like butterflies, hummingbirds, um, bats, and even people help with pollination sometimes too. Sometimes the wind can also help with pollination because the wind can blow pollen from one flower to another. Okay, so I want you to think of our little speedy bee, and we are going to work on page 17 of our packet, and we are going to draw a picture of one of our favorite flowers and show how a bee would visit it to help with the pollination. Okay, so I'm going to switch cameras. So here we are going to draw a flower, and I'm going to make sure that I have all the different parts that we have talked about. So let's start by putting in, I'm going to have some stamen. And remember, there were several stamen in here. And I'm going to put a little pistil in the middle. And then I'm going to do my petals. Okay. You can draw your flower however you want, of course, but I am going to make sure that I have those different parts showing. The stamen, those pistils in the middle. And if you need to pause to make draw your flower, you can do that. But once you have drawn your flower, yeah, I'm going to not color this bottom part. I'm going to turn that into this part going into the, oh, I don't want black, I want green. Go down to the stem. Okay, so as soon as you have drawn your flower, then we're also going to draw our pollinator. And we're going to go ahead and, well, I'm going to go ahead and do a bee, but you can choose one of those other pollinators I mentioned. So we've got a bee or a butterfly or a hummingbird, a bat. Okay, there's my little bee. And I'm going to show that he's been flying around. And he's going to go heading straight in to find the nectar and the pollen in here. Okay, so I'm going to put some little dots on here to show where the pollen would be. Okay, so there we have it. We have a picture of a flower that we think a pollinator might want to visit. Okay, and remember it says include the flower parts we learned about, and so that's why I made sure I had the stamen and the pistil on my flower. Okay, and then over here on the next page, page 18, we are going to talk about what is a pollinator and what we learned about what it is that they are doing. Okay, or what is pollination and what we learned about pollinators and what they're doing with the different flower parts. Okay, so what is pollination? We want to use full sentences. So pollination is when pollen from the stamen of a plant is taken to the pistil of a plant. Okay. What is the job of pollination? Why is it so important? Okay. It allows what to happen? It allows what to grow? Seeds. It allows seeds to grow. So then I ask you, will flowers produce seeds if the flower doesn't get pollinated? No, at least not good seeds that it will grow. Okay. And then we have page 19. It says, draw or write how insects and animals help plants. Also include how plants also help the insects and animals. Remember, this is called symbiosis. Okay, so think about what we talked about, how they help one another. The insects help with the pollination or the pollination of the flowers, and then they are able to get nectar and pollen that they need from the flowers as well. Okay, so how can we show that with a picture? I'm thinking that I can draw my bee again here. I forgot antenna on the other bee. I'm going to go back and put some antenna on him. There we go. Okay, so I have my little bee here again. Okay, and what does he do to a plant? He pollinates it. Okay, so he pollinates the flower. And what does the flower do to help the bee? The flower gives the bee nectar and pollen. Okay? So that is showing a symbiotic relationship. The bee helps the flower helps the bee. Can you think of other examples? Maybe take a moment and talk to your family if they know other animals or plants or creatures that help each other in nature. Okay? Okay, then the last page we have for today is going to be drawing a picture of what we are seeing on our brassica repa right now. So check out the photo so you can finish page 20. Okay, but now I'm going to go down to our plants in my garage and I am going to pollinate the plants. Now, I don't have a bee to go around to all the different plants with, so I am going to take this Q-tip, and just like a bee, a Q-tip has like all these little hairs on it, right? Because it's made out of cotton. And so it will catch the pollen just like the bee catches the pollen on its body, and we'll be able to take it around to the different plants. Okay, so I'm going to let you guys see me working on that in just a moment. Okay, now I'm down in my garage with all the plants, and you can see how big they've gotten, and you can see those yellow blossoms are showing up. So here's the plant that we've been measuring. This is the one where we've been measuring and I've been posting all the pictures of. And so this is the one I'm going to start with, but you can see, if you look at it up close, okay, can you see the stamen and the pistils on those? It's a little fuzzy. Okay, I'll take another picture just of the flower so you can see what they look like up close. But I'm going to gently, I want to be very, very soft as I do this. I'm going to kind of hold that steady, and I'm going to touch the tip of this onto the stamen and then move it to a new flower. Just gently touch around to all the different parts. So I'm going to do that with all of the flowers that we can see so far. Okay, I've gone through to all the blossoms that we see so far. And can you see how the tip of this is now yellow? Okay, that is more of the pollen that didn't get transferred to some of the flowers but stayed on the Q-tip. And so that would be like what the bee would carry back to his hive. Okay, so I am going to come visit the flowers every couple of days now to pollinate them. And we'll do that for a few times. And then we'll be able to see in lesson 7 what that causes to have happen. Okay, so I'm excited to see what happens. Are you? Okay, see you soon. I hope you had fun with science today. Don't forget to draw your picture of how tall the plant's gotten. Okay, bye.